I've been putting bad guys away for 44 years. I've been part of investigating over 1,000 deaths. I've been a part of putting more than 400 murders in prison, and I'm still at it. I'm Tim Corbett. These are my cases. This isn't your typical criminal profile podcast. This is Killer Catchers. Good evening. My name's Tim Corbett. I'm the owner of killercatchers.com. We're going to be talking tonight to a lady named Keegan Wolf, whose 7-month-old baby was killed by someone. And when I say someone, I don't talk a whole lot about the person that does it, but I'm going to throw his name out there. It's Isaiah Montrea. He pled guilty and is enjoying prison. Tonight we have Constance on the phone with us. She couldn't be here tonight, but she's allowed us to call her. Constance, just so everybody's aware of it, we're recording this both audio and video. Obviously, they can't see you, but is it okay with you if we do that?
Yes, it is.
Okay. To my left is Tim Wiley, South Bend police officer. To his left, Gary Mullins, also a South Bend police officer. And to his left is Mike Norby, also a South Bend police officer. They all worked with me in homicide. First two guys were investigators. Third guy down there was Mike Norby. You're going to hear a lot about what went on, and I'm sure you see the picture that I'm pointing at right here. That is Keegan. Keegan was 7 months old. Take a look at that baby. Take a look at that picture and let that burn into your head. Let it burn into your head that that's what happens out here consistently. Let it burn in your head that police officers see this all the time. Let it burn in your head that these are the type of people, the cops, that keep digging and keep fighting and get the answers for the family. This lady has been through hell and back, and we're going to give her an opportunity tonight to get whatever she wants to say off her chest. She's been given carte blanche. I'll do like I usually do. I'll kind of go around the room. We'll let everybody kind of talk and discuss what they saw and did and continue to do. And Constance, anytime you want to jump in, you say what you want to say when you want to, okay?
All right.
Okay. First thing, this happened in June of 2017, June 7th, 2017. A horrible event. When I think about it, not only, it makes you feel bad, but it pisses me off. That's exactly what it does. It pisses me off that this baby had to go through something like this because of a coward. You're going to hear about events, plural, that happened previous to the ending of this baby's life. And I'm going to turn it over to Tim Wiley here for just a minute and kind of set the scene about what happened, Tim.
Well, there were three major incidents that happened, injuries for Keegan, leading up to his ultimate death. On June 7th, he was airlifted to Riley Hospital because he had air in his chest cavity, which is not where it should have been. Normally should be in the lungs, but it was actually around his heart and different places inside. The doctors down there in Riley had said that most likely the air had come into his lungs from a foreign object being placed into his throat. Riley Hospital patched him up and sent him home. On June 20th, only less than 2 weeks after the original injury, there was a second injury where Keegan was stabbed in the eye with an ink pen. The pen did not penetrate the eyeball itself, but it did go into the soft tissue around his eye. Again, he was airlifted, or he was transported down to Riley Hospital for more surgery, more treatment, and again returned patched up and sent home. The final injury took place on June 24th, and by my estimation, the best time frame for when this took place was actually between 5:45 and 6:10 in the morning. I know that from when I can track Constance when she left the house versus when Constance shows up at the local area hospital where they were seeking treatment at. And I know the time when they walked in because I have the video from when they walked into the hospital. So I can tell you, narrow it down, that third injury between that time frame. Okay. And ultimately, the third time he goes down to Riley Hospital, the doctors down there in Riley were unable to save him a third time, and Keegan ended up passing a few days after that.
Okay. Constance, I'm going to let you jump in here. These prior injuries that he had, that Tim just explained prior to the ultimate injury, you were boyfriend girlfriend with Isaiah, correct?
Yes, I was.
Okay, and I'm sure during all these times he didn't tell you, "Hey, this is what I've done. This is what happened." Is that accurate?
Yeah, well, the second time, when the pen was going in his eye, I had immediately checked the pack and play, and there was nothing in it because that's when I found him. And so I don't know where the pen came from, but he supposedly had found the pen.
Okay, how old was he at the time that he supposedly found this pin?
He was still 7 months, I think.
Okay, was he a pretty mobile child that he had good dexterity and movement and that kind of thing, that he would have been capable of getting out of his playpen, seeking out a pin, and stabbing himself in the eye?
No, he could not get out of the pack and play.
Is that when you kind of started thinking, what's going on here with Isaiah?
Yeah, that's when I started.
Was he a pretty prolific liar about these incidents?
Yeah.
Okay. Did he have you believing that he knew nothing about it and he's just a good guy doing the right things?
Yeah, he had me believing that. And he had me believing that he actually cared for my kids.
Tell me about that. How did he go about doing that?
He would try to take care of them more. He would try to feed Keegan his baby food. He would try to help me with Giovanni. I mean, it was just these little things he would do.
Do you think it was a show? Like he's doing it in front of you to show you, I want you to believe that I really care and I'm not the type of guy that would do something like that?
Well, I do think it was all a show. I think it was all just something for him to have just a place to live. He was doing it all so he didn't be on the streets.
Okay. Now, you've heard what Tim Wiley said. Were you in the courtroom when all this stuff was revealed?
I was there at the last court date.
Okay, when he got sentenced, or were you there for everything else?
No, I was just there when he got sentenced, the last court date.
Did you ever hear him admit to what he did to set a factual basis?
I heard him admit to what he did when we were in Westfield, Indiana. That's the only time.
What did he say?
He had said that he wanted to be the first one to tell me that he had done something to Keegan, and it was a lie, but what he told me.
What did he say he did?
He said that he 3 different stories. Well, he had told me 3 different stories. He had said that Keegan had fallen in the pack and play, or he dropped him in the pack and play, and he'd hit his head. And then he had said that he dropped him down the steps, and that was something. And then finally he had told me that he was walking out of the closet, and the bedroom was, and he tripped on the step, and he landed on top of Keegan.
Okay. I'm going to switch over to Gary Mullins. Gary, you were one of the investigators on this, and I know we handle a lot of baby cases, and they're always an emotional thing, but you have to drive through that and keep pushing and kind of set your sights on what the target is and go after the target. Tell me what you did, what you went through.
Well, we had it wasn't a question of a who done it, because we had all the players named relatively early. We knew that there was only a few people that were in the house, a few people that actually had access to Keegan. One of which was grandmother, where Constance was staying. Isaiah, Constance's boyfriend at the time, Of course, Constance, because we couldn't rule her out, and she was put through hell as a result of this, and also her other baby, which he didn't. It could have been possible, but the nature of injuries that Keegan suffered, we knew it wasn't probable. So my role in this, I had interviewed the grandmother, and in speaking to her, she stated that Keegan was pretty fine. That evening before, a little bit fussy for the simple fact that he did sustain that eye injury with the pens, and he was taking medication for that. Grandma thought that maybe he was a little hungry and needed some medication to treat the eye injury that he sustained. Grandma described Keegan as being a little more fussy than his older brother, and it wasn't uncommon for him to be fussy like that, so she didn't think anything about it. But he was fine that night before Keegan went up to the bedroom with Constance and Isaiah. After that was the last time Grandma had seen Keegan until she went to Elkhart General Hospital. Constance had got out the next day and took Grandma to work, and while at work, Grandma received a phone call from Constance saying, we're on our way, or we're at Elkhart Hospital at that point in time with Keegan. He's not breathing, he's not waking up. So Grandma got somebody to take her to Elkhart General Hospital, and that was the last time that she had seen Keegan.
Well, I think this is kind of the point in time, just so everybody's perfectly clear. Keegan's sibling did nothing. Grandma did nothing. Constance did nothing. They are not involved in this even a little bit, other than being victims of this punk that did this to a helpless child. So I want to make that perfectly clear. Now, we've kind of fast forwarded, and Norbs, you got involved how? Tell me your deal in this.
Crime scene investigator. So my primary responsibility at the beginning is to document where things happen. So going out to the address, usually bring the response truck out. On this case, a lot of photography, and you never know what's in play and what's out of play. So there's large area of woods in the back we had to go through just to make sure there was nothing out of place back there. Some outbuildings to clear and go through and make sure there was nothing out of place in those. And then documentation with photography and video on the inside. Actually, gotten the information that it happened upstairs. So we did a lot of the photography up in the upstairs bedroom, which has a closet toward the north end of it. So taking photographs of the condition of how everything is as we find it. In this case, because of what we knew or information we've been given about the injuries, we're looking for things that would cause those types of injuries. So we had found some galvanized pipe as like closet rod in that closet. So we documented those and took measurements as to how high up they were and far away from the wall, measured the height of the bed, how far it was from the bed to the floor. Trying to get anything that possibly could have been used or fallen on or what might have caused the injuries. We did find the pack and play packed up on a spare bed inside the closet. Opened that up and we saw some stuff that was on that looked possibly like vomit, which is common when you have a head injury. You'll throw up. So that was something that we were really looking at as far as you see something like that, head injuries with the vomit, and that could have been where this all had happened. It was very peculiar that it had been folded up and then placed on the bed. So we took that as evidence. So documenting the things that are there and anything that possibly could have caused the injuries you want to try and collect and take with you. So that's why the pack and play went with us.
Did you have a partner?
Yes.
Who was that?
Sergeant Ken Cornelis.
Okay. And of course, all this was done within an hour because you have to get 4 commercials in and a coffee break and all that, and you're done in an hour. And like NCIS or whatever that thing is, you've got satellites flying over helping you out to see the bad guy leave, right?
Yeah, we don't have that budget, I guess.
Huh.
Must have missed that
It's kind
paycheck.
of like Star Wars stuff. How long do you think you guys were there?
Oh, geez. 8, 9, 10 hours. I'm not sure. Every scene's different. I don't remember that one lengthwise. I know we were there for a long time.
Was that one of the ones that you'd seal up and come back?
So a lot of times with stuff like that, we will, especially until we get more information through autopsy. So you only get one shot at it. So we like to hold on to things until we make sure that anything that possibly, we're not doctors, so we kind of guess on what some of those things could be. We take the things that are most likely, but then you find through physicians, this looks like this caused it. And if you don't have all the things that match those mechanisms, then you want to be able to go back and collect those. So possibly we did. Possibly we held the scene for until.
And speaking about doctors helping, Dr. Yount, the guy is a brain surgeon, and when he actually operates on brains. I guess that's the best way to put it. The guy is a genius. He's been available to us anytime we need him. Matter of fact, I can remember calling down there and talking to him, and he got on the phone. And if you think I'm blunt, you haven't seen blunt. He will absolutely dissect what we're telling him. That can't happen. There's no way. That was a high-speed impact from a car collision. And he starts going on and on and on. And while these guys are doing interviews, he's giving information about why what the bad guy is saying can't be true. So these guys can take that information back in. They can go, nah, I'm calling BS on that. That can't be. Oh, wait a minute, I got another story. Filter that one out. I got another story. And finally, it whittles down to what really happened, the science. And Dr. Yount, I can't give that guy enough credit. So, and I never heard one thing about, hey, I'm a doc and I'm $800 an hour, and do this and do that. He would have jumped in a car from where he was at and drove up here and absolutely been part of this. But he stayed on the phone and he helped us. And thanks, Doc. Now, Mike, you attended the autopsy, correct?
Yes.
I don't want to go into a great deal about that, obviously for Constance, but that's something that, trust me, you don't want to see. You don't want to be a part of it. You don't want to know about it. You probably don't even want to hear about it. But it's something that has to be done, and I say it all the time. We have to eliminate all other causes of death, or some defense attorney's going to make up an excuse for the behavior. You remember about how long that took for the autopsy? I'm sure it was extensive.
Yeah, there was organ procurement before that, so several hours.
So even in death, this baby gave life to other people.
Absolutely.
Constance, I'm going to thank you on behalf of humanity, which right now seems to be spiraling into the toilet to allow your child to help other children. So thank you.
Yes, I think that's wonderful that he was able to do that.
Well, he shouldn't have been able to do that. He should be out playing. He should be able to enjoy life, but for a coward doing what cowards do, take advantage of the innocent. And I hope he's having a miserable life in prison. And I know you shouldn't say that, and you should turn the other cheek and all that tree hugging, whale saving, earth muffin stuff, but that's not how I feel. I care about that baby. I care about Constance, and I care about the cops and the first responders and people that help out, and I don't care about him. So if it's time for you to hit the off button because I'm not warm and fuzzy, then do it, because the meat eaters that are listening to this, those are the people that are going to understand and want to stop this stuff. Now, I'm off my soapbox and I'm still pissed though, but go ahead. What happened?
Well, that night on the 24th, Gary and I and a prosecutor, we ended up going down to Riley Hospital, and we separate Constance and Isaiah from each other, and we talk to them in different rooms and at least get a basic story out of both of them, what happened, where, and all this other stuff.
Who did you have?
I ended up talking to both.
Okay.
So I ended up interviewing both Isaiah and Constance. The interesting thing about, and I didn't really pick it up at the time, and I should have been paying more attention, is when I was talking with Isaiah, I asked him, well, it's only the two of you. There's only the two of you have access to this baby. What happened? And he said he knew that he didn't hurt the baby. That was his story. He didn't hurt the baby, so it must have been Constance. So even from that night on the 24th, he is deflecting onto Constance and saying that he didn't do it. He knows he didn't do it. It must have been her.
What a brave man. Kill a 7-year-old and blame a woman.
Yeah, and I didn't even know he had said that until we were in Westfield. So, that pretty much took away me being able to even get the chance to say goodbye to Keegan at his last moments, because I was being seen as somebody who hurt him.
Well, and Constance, you have to understand that part, that we have to either put somebody in or take somebody out. And thank God, you have policemen that do pry and do push and do get the answers and just don't take, what's his face? I won't even mention his name, his story. You're going to kill a baby and then you're going to blame a woman. What depth will that guy sink to get out of this? And but for the great work of these guys, the team, Dr. Yount, the nurses, everybody else, if we were the type that was going to take a hit lick and a promise and just go ahead and jam you because, we would be garbage as far as I'm concerned. So now you're starting to bifurcate the stories and figure out what goes on. What was your partner doing?
Oh, he was definitely there helping me out, keeping an eye on everybody, making sure nobody's cross-contaminating of information, and just keeping everything on lockdown for me. After that point, we can't really move forward with anything else, because at that point we don't really have any physical evidence to go off of. We don't have any of this. We don't have any of that. All we have is their story and a child and a doctor telling us that something happened to that kid. Don't know what yet, but something happened. So at that point, we escort Constance and Isaiah both out of the hospital and essentially send them on their way. And like I said, after a couple days, Keegan lost his fight in organ procurement and he passed away.
Okay, and I think most people understand organ procurement, they bring in an actual team and they obtain organs, whatever they need. And many times we have to have officers there or forensic pathologists to see that. And then after those organs are taken, procured, an autopsy is conducted again to show what the cause of death is. Were you there for the organ procurement?
Yes,
And you have a child.
I do.
And what did you think?
It's autopsies are always tough, but kids especially when you got your own and they're not that far off in age. I think my son was about 2 at the time, so it's tough. It's tough to remain professional on some of it. So little things that stand out that remind you of your own. So, but we're there to do what we're there to do, and we're there to speak on their behalf because they're not able to give us a story anymore. So we're trying to take the information that's there, the data that's there, and what the other experts are able to give us so that we're able to relay that information back to these guys when they talk to folks and whittle down the story as to what's true and what's not true. There's only so many outcomes that come from what is actually there. And obviously some of those things you can't see with the naked eye. So when you get into autopsy, then certain things are revealed that other people had no knowledge, that they couldn't have the knowledge that it was there. So there's no way that they can come up with a story that's perfect that explains why these things happen, because they don't even know that they're there. So those stories, Keegan's story, gets told through his body.
Gary, what do you have?
Well, I think while at the hospital down there, I think Wiley did the majority of the work. I had to play babysitter since we're running on a thin team, and three of us had gone down to there, one of which was a prosecutor, to observe the interviews and see what's going on.
Who went on that? Which
It was Micah Cox.
Okay.
He went down with us and sat through the interviews while Tim spoke with both Constance and Isaiah, and I made sure that one didn't leave while they were in speaking with the other one. So I was just a glorified babysitter at that point in time. So Wiley did the heavy lifting on this.
what was Micah's feel?
He obviously knew something was going on with the two. He didn't, if I remember correctly, he just didn't believe Isaiah's story. I don't want to say he saw right through it, but there was just a premonition. But Isaiah, being the coward that he was, is putting it off completely on Constance.
Well, and we can't make an arrest on what we think. It's what we
Right.
can prove and what we know and probable cause. So the frustration, and I can remember talking to you guys. I wasn't down there, but I can remember talking to you guys, and the thought of somebody walking out the front door that did something to this baby, and then now we have to worry about how do we find them? How desperate are they going to be? Or how desperate is he going to be? Not they. How desperate is he going to be? What's he going to do? Is something going to happen to Constance? Is it going to be a murder-suicide? You just never know, but you can't just do it because you think. If that was the case, we'd have 100% clearance, because we know a lot of things, and we know a lot of people that we're confident did it, but we just can't quite prove it, and you have to wait and do it the right way. It's a tough thing. Constance, what was your feeling when Westfield's down by Indianapolis, right?
Yeah.
Okay, and you and him left. Where did you guys go?
When we left the hospital, we stayed around because I was trying to get any information I could on how Keegan was doing. So we were just around there. I didn't have anywhere to go or, anybody to come get me at the moment. So I was, sleeping under the bridge that was closest to the hospital.
Where did he go?
He stayed around me pretty much most of the time.
Did you get the feeling like he was staying around you to, kind of pick your brain and keep you brainwashed or whatever he was trying to do? Or was he around, to protect you? Was he around because he didn't have any other place to go? What was your gut on that?
At first, I thought it was just to protect me, but then he started saying weird things, and, it got to the point where he was trying to make me feel or make me believe like that I did have something to do with this in any way that he could. He was just, I don't know, he was angry all the time.
Did you get the feeling like he was trying to brainwash you, like he was trying to, create a story and put it in your head and make you believe, you're crazy or you're losing your mind and maybe you did do this? Did you ever get a feeling like that?
Yeah, I did all the time. And I tried to remember everything that I could about that night and that morning, just everything. because I knew I didn't do it. I just couldn't remember if I could remember something.
Well, you always second guess yourself on something like that. That's why when police officers are involved in shootings, a lot of times, a lengthy period goes by before there's an actual interview because of all the things that your body goes through, the dynamics, and that's the same for witnesses. So I understand that. Did he ever make a confession to you? Did he ever say, I did this, I might have done it, other than when he set a factual basis at sentencing?
No, he never admitted to me that he had done it. he was, talking about possible solutions that could have possibly happened. I'm not sure exactly what he said, but he never said that he did it or he knew how it happened or anything. He just acted like I don't know, he acted like everybody was looking for us.
Did he ever apologize to you after he pled guilty?
Yeah, he did all the time.
What did he say?
He would just tell me how sorry he is, and he would try to explain to me how all of it happened, and he was trying to get me to stay with him because he was just so sorry, and he really loved Keegan, and it was truly an accident, and I was just, I don't know.
Yeah, that ought to start off with once upon a time and BS at the end, because that wasn't an accident. Those were purposeful acts committed by a coward on a helpless little boy right there in that picture. And there's no other way you can cut it. If somebody wants to come along and give him his hugs and do a Dr. Phil for him or whatever, have at it. I have to be pretty choosy with my words, but I can guarantee you if he was on fire, I would have an empty bladder, if that gives you any kind of description. How do you feel about him?
I hope only the worst for him. I know that sounds really mean, but I hope he's just having an awful time in prison, and I hope he's loving every second that he's watching out on who's gonna get him this night or whatever, because I was getting called all these things like a baby killer and that I should die and that everybody's gonna try to fight me because of him. So I hope he's just getting everything in there, and I hope he does not get out.
Well, I won't go into what I think. I think I've already made that kind of clear, so there's not a whole lot. What else about this case? Was there anything about it that really stood out to you guys that this is the linchpin? This is the piece right now. I know we got him.
Well, the incident happened on June 24th, and after that, we get the results of the autopsy and a bunch of other information, and we're narrowing it down on what actually happened to Keegan and how he got hurt. But we also learned that Constance and Isaiah were still down in Indianapolis area. Didn't know exactly where, didn't have an address, didn't have a solid place to go to find them. So started doing some search warrants for social medias and phone records, and that's IP addresses based on those, and actually tracked down to an address they'd been staying at in Westfield, Indiana. Gary and we ended up going down to Westfield, Indiana, and we hook up with Detective Marlowe down there in Westfield. So shout out to Westfield PD and Detective Marlowe down there. Thank you for all your help and the rest of your guys down there. Anything we needed, they rolled out the red carpet and said, hey, you want to go here? We'll give you a car. We'll take you wherever you need to go. We'll give you directions. We'll give you whatever you need. So we ended up going to the house where we thought that they were staying. Nobody was there at the time, but I was able to make some phone calls, and we met up with the guy who actually owned the house where they were staying. And he also provided Constance and Isaiah with a job. So that guy was able to link us up to where the pair were at, and we're able to make an arrest on Isaiah for an outstanding warrant he had out of Elkhart County. So we get Isaiah, and we go down to the Westfield Police Department. Constance took herself down there, and Gary and I, we teamed up and we actually interviewed Constance again for the second time. And one of the things that she said, or Gary asked the question to Constance, what should happen to the person that did this? And gut reaction from her, and I'm paraphrasing for Constance, was whatever happened to Keegan should happen to that person. They should be dead.
Do you remember that, Constance?
I do not remember that.
Okay.
So we left the interview with Constance, still kind of on the fence about where we're going and what we're doing, but we go in and we talk with Isaiah. And Gary is over here talking to Isaiah, and in that interview you asked him a very specific question. You remember what that was?
I think it was the same as what I had asked Constance. What do you think should happen to a person that does this to a child like that?
And Isaiah said something along the lines of they deserve a second chance, they should get counseling, they should get drug counseling, and basically minimizing any punishment for the person who did that. And in my mind, as soon as he said that, I knew we had the guy. We were talking to the guy who did this because he was minimizing his own personal part of what had happened. So after I hear that, and I think I had the epiphany, and I looked over at Gary and I'm like, oh shit, this is the guy. We've been working for so many months to try and get into the room with the guy, talk to him, get a confession out, get him his story. And finally, Gary was able to ask the crucial question that tipped us in the right scale, or tipped us in the right way on the scale of this is the guy, this is who we need to actually break down. And Gary continued to talk to him, and finally Isaiah confessed to at least partial injury of what happened.
Was Micah down there then? Or was it just you two?
I think it was just us two at
Yeah, it
that
was
point.
just us two.
And then when did it come about that he got snagged up for the charges?
Well, we after his confession down there in Westfield, we put him in the car, and we actually drove from Westfield, Indiana, up to the jail in Elkhart County where his warrant was, turned him over to the Elkhart County jail. So we had him in custody. We had him in pocket. We knew where he was. From that point, the next day, we sit down with you, we sit down with everybody else, and we kind of hash out, okay, this is what we have, yada, yada, yada. Let's talk to the doctors. Let's talk to Dr. Yant and figure out what's going on there. And Dr. Yant says, what that guy described to you is not the extent of what happened to Keegan. It's maybe part of it, but there's more to it. So again, Gary and I, we go pick up Isaiah over at the Elkhart County Jail. We bring him over to our place over here in South Bend, and we continue to talk to him and get more stories out of him. I believe we ended up with 3 different versions of events of what Isaiah said happened.
Well, Constance, didn't he tell you 3 versions of what happened?
Yeah, he did.
What'd he tell you?
He told me that Keegan had possibly he had dropped him, or he'd put him down hard in the pack and play that morning, or he said that he fell down, or he dropped him down the steps, and he didn't make it all the way down, and he fell the rest of the way, like over the side of the steps, and he hit the ground. And then the third story was the last, the only story I've left that I know that happened was that he was in the room and he tripped over the little step, and he had Keegan on his shoulder, like, patting his back, and he fell on top of him as he was trying to catch himself from falling. But I didn't hear any of those stories until after he was already in custody.
Well, you have plenty of time to sit in your bunk and when you're not spooning with somebody and make up your story, and you rehearse it and you try it out on people and you keep going over it until you finally get the one lie/story that you're comfortable with, and that's the one you go with. So we go through this whole process. We sit down, we talk, we go over it. Now we have to get a prosecutor down there, and prosecutor gave the thumbs up, and that's always a good feel. How did he get arrested on the warrant for what he did to Keegan? Was he still in Elkhart? Or?
Yeah, he was still in Elkhart.
So were you able to deliver the good news to him personally, or?
before he left that day from homicide to take him back to the Elkhart County Jail, we told him he was under arrest for level 1 neglect of a dependent.
And
Before he left our place, we actually put him back in the car and took him back to Elkhart.
How did he act?
He said something later on that I thought was kind of weird. That when we were transporting him, he said he was remorseful and that he wanted to open the door and jump out of the car and kill himself that way by jumping out of a speeding car as we were going down the highway. So at least that's what he said that at some point.
Well, everybody's got an option. But again, that would take a little bit of bravery, and I'm quite sure he doesn't have that because he's down in prison. He has many opportunities to, satisfy his ideas if that's what he wants to do. But Norbs, how'd you feel at the end of this?
Well, I always have admiration for what these guys do. So the way
It's not these guys, it's us guys, everybody. Everybody has a dime in that dollar.
So there's cases we don't get to pick and choose what the information is, and that's the reason why we're a team. Because sometimes we find stuff as at the crime scene or whatever that really puts a piece of a puzzle in that you can't see a picture until that piece is there. Sometimes we don't. Sometimes we don't have a whole lot of that. Sometimes it's these guys with their wizardry and the magic that they do with the digital aspects of things and the way that they line up questions and play chess with people. There's a skill set to that a lot of people don't have and people don't get to see. Keying in on people's body language and sometimes what they say and sometimes what they don't say. And you heard some of those things that Gary had mentioned about things that people don't normally pick up on. How does this affect you? What do you think should happen to people like this? And obviously a mother's response is kill them. And obviously a guilty person's response is I don't want that to happen to me. So maybe some counseling. And it's good to be able to come to a final conclusion. It's good that there was enough there and there was enough work done by guys like Gary and Tim to be able to give answers to a family that had none. And to be able to say that we did everything we could for Keegan, because that's what it was all about.
Gary, these are kind of the final words, so put a complete sentence together.
Yeah, that's sometimes that's difficult for me. Yeah, that was kind of the nail in the coffin, or our epiphany when Isaiah had said that somebody like that should go through counseling, drug counseling, and they should be given a second chance, because that was like that aha moment, the light bulb went on, and we just kind of looked at each other and we're like, okay, now it's time to zero in, and that's exactly what Wiley did. He just started going at him and with question after question, and they had a moment, and Isaiah broke down, and Wiley was able to capitalize on that and get the first confession. Unbeknownst to us, it wasn't what had truly happened, but it was enough for us to realize this is the guy. He did do something. What it was he did was still yet to be confirmed. And thanks to Dr. Yount for being able to confirm that, yes, something similar to that happened to Keegan, but that specifically was not, which allowed us to go back and speak with him again and come up with a second story, and then the third story that was more plausible. But I mean, at that point in time, the confessions that he gave to Tim and I were enough to charge him with that level 1 felony, neglect of a dependent causing death, and solidify the case.
Well, obviously, everybody did a great job. You don't get a guilty plea on a hit lick and a promise. You have to establish what happened and do it. Well, how about you?
Well, I think for me it kind of came to the point where we were down in Westfield. Isaiah had just confessed to us, at least the first confession of what he did. Gary and I leave the room, and I'm not ashamed to admit it. I gave Gary a hug. I'm like, dude, we're there. This is the guy. We're on the right track. I've been working on this case. We've been working on this case for a couple months. It all kind of came to that point where it's like, it's a relief. Then I gave Gary a hug, and we went back in and got more information from him. So from Isaiah, and then moved on from there and were able to get him up here. And like I said, the next day, round table it, talk with everybody, and get those finalized charges on him.
Constance, what do you want to say? And just say it. Don't worry about anything.
I know that I don't know how they found us in Westfield, but I was hoping they would. Isaiah said that he wanted to jump out of the car and just kill himself or whatever. He was saying that every single day, and that the cops were looking for us, and that we were both going to go out by cop, and he was just going to kill us both and put us both over the bridge. And it was every day, and I was just terrified to even be around him. I was hoping that somebody would come and find us. And I'm so happy that he's in there now, but he just continues to send me letters telling me how sorry he is, and he'll send them to my fiance, and he'll send them to my daughter. And I've called and I've reported it, and he will just not stop. I've changed my number multiple times. He will not leave me alone. He says when he gets out, he's going to come find us, and we're going to be a family. And he's crazy. I hate him with a passion.
Well, you realize what he's doing, I'm sure, with sending these letters. He's trying to drive a wedge between you and your fiance. Don't ever give in to that. Don't let him win. Don't let that, when those letters come, put it in the bottom of your bird cage, much like some newspapers.
Most of the time, my fiance keeps them, and he gets rid of them himself because he doesn't even want me to see them, read them, open them.
Well, you know your baby's in heaven. You know that, right?
Yes, I do.
Okay. What, and again, none of this stuff is rehearsed. We don't tell anybody what to say. I want to hear your honest opinion. What do you think about the cops that helped on this, that did this case?
At first, I was super upset because I felt like they had taken my opportunity to be able to say goodbye and to be able to go to his funeral and all that. I felt like they took all of that from me by accusing me when I told them how innocent I was. But I was given a gift that I needed, and now I'm so happy with all the work that they did, and I'm happy that they cared so much for Keegan that they didn't stop.
Okay.
And I really appreciate everything that Wiley did.
It's not just me. It was everybody.
Well, I know I don't know everybody's name, but I've talked to you, and
Well, anything else you want to say, Constance, or does your fiance want to say anything? Still your floor.
Pretty much I'm just glad it's over, but I know we're still dealing with the consequences of, the ripple effect of what transpired that day as today in our relationship, and we're in the process right now. We're trying to get her oldest son back, and that's a living hell. And it's a direct, that happened because of what he did to Keegan, and there's no reason why. I think my opinion that we have to jump through hoops to get him back because he's in prison. They should be giving her son back, and it's really hard, and it's really hard on her not having her oldest son when she didn't do anything wrong in the end.
Well, I hope you guys have an attorney fighting for you. If there's anything that I can do, through my private investigation firm, you call me, no charge. I'll help with what I can.
That'd be great. Thank you so much.
Well, you can call me tomorrow if you want.
Thank you.
Okay. This is the conclusion. You've heard it from the beginning to the end. You've heard the mother. You've seen the baby. You continue to look at the baby. You noticed not a whole lot of talk about the killer. There's not going to be. He does not get the respect the family does, the victim does, and anybody that's involved in it. Again, a collective effort. Not one person does it all. Everybody does it. And as long as each person does their individual piece, it comes together. Doctors, attorneys, nurses, everybody that's involved. It's a necessity that has to be done. I can tell you, 45 years of being a policeman, it was an honor and a privilege. It was an honor and a privilege to be commander of homicide and work on these cases to get the resolution. It was an honor and a privilege to lead a bunch of great people. And it's really, I shouldn't even say lead. You could probably put a mannequin in my chair and these people would do what they need to do, whether I'm there or somebody else is there or not. They know what needs to be done. They're hard charging. I want to thank military people that are still in. I want to thank the vets, and I want to thank first responders, and I especially want to thank police officers. One thing I will ask you to do, if you're listening to this, if you're looking at it, if you're hearing it, push it out to as many people as you can so more people can actually see and hear what cops and victims and families go through. Not the smoke and mirrors, not the other stuff that's the rhetoric that is just complete garbage. Push it out to as many people as you can, and let's get people on board to hear what the truth is about and see what happens to this baby so you don't have to see that, so it doesn't happen again. We can make a difference. I really do believe that, but it's got to be with the truth. It's got to be with honesty. It has to be with courage, and sometimes you have to stand up. I think Woody Harrelson said, "Nut up or shut up," and that's what it's about. Was it Woody Harrelson?
I think you're right.
Okay. So you get one right once in a while. So again, thank you. This is killercatchers.com. I'm Tim Corbett. If you need me, you can reach me at 574-229-8115. I am still doing homicide cases. I have 2 going right now. And I'm always looking to help, so I'm not hard to find. Thank you. Good night.